Okay, so today we want to talk about the 99 curriculum, 99 player curriculum. And with this curriculum, a little bit of review from the last couple of weeks, but then also get into the nuts and bolts of what we're looking for in the 99 curriculum. So again, just starting off with a review, everything is predicated upon the decision-making process. So we're trying to teach thinking soccer players, we're trying to teach game intelligence and life intelligence. And so that comes with the 5 steps of decision making: perception, to see the field, be aware of what your options are, conceive an idea, what's the best plan of attack right now, decision, pick one, and then execute that one, and then assess it and review it. Did it work, and why or why not? I'm going to keep this slide up until everybody has it kind of memorized, just because, again, it underpins so much of what we do. It's really, really important that we always reviewing and refreshing that in our minds, but also to help our players review and refresh that skill. 99 is really kind of the bridge format, right? So it's a larger field than 77, or obviously 4v4. The numbers are greater in terms of, there's 9 players, there's 18 on the field, there's only 1 ball. They touch the ball, the players touch the ball less. So all of the different decisions and the different reactions to the game become a little bit more about relationships in space and relationships with the ball, as opposed to having the ball and being ball dominant as it is in the younger ages. There's more complex tactical decisions as a result. So if Zach comes towards me, what do I have to do? Do I have to move away? Do I have to get ahead of him so he has a forward option, or cover in behind him, and so on? And then team tactics are introduced and reinforced. So, this is where you really start thinking about, we have shape when we play 77, but really in 99 is where we start thinking about the block of defenders and the block of midfielders and maybe the forward line as its own unique block, so that we can start to shape the positional roles a little bit more fully. We can start to flesh out the roles of defenders in a system, or midfielders in a system, and attackers in the system. And what's the same, but then nuance them to see what's different, and how does that affect how they move through the phases of the field and phases of the game. So again, just to review, the positional numbers and player movements, kind of the generalized player movements based upon our system and our shape and our structure. The 1 being the goalkeeper, the 2 is the right back, 3 is the left back, 4 and 5 are the center backs. Again, for ease of information, keep the even numbers on the right side and the odd numbers on the left in the back line. The 6 is our defensive center midfielder, or our holding midfielder. The 7 would be our right midfielder or our winger. The 8 is our box-to-box central midfielder, more of the workhorse of the engine room of the team. The 9 is your striker or center forward. Your 10 is your playmaking center midfielder, and your 11 is your left winger or left midfielder. Now, within that, okay, now that we're in 99, we do start to pare that back to have numbers within our shape in the team that we have. So again, I keep the 4 as my center back when I use it. And I just, for common language, if that's comfortable for everybody, it makes sense. The 4 in a 99 would be the center back if you're only playing with 1. If you're adding the 2nd, obviously, it goes to left and right. The most common shape that we use, I know I use this, I know Zach uses this shape, and others in the 99, if you do use it, that's great. But we use a 1-3-1-3-1, which is the goalkeeper being the first one, the 3 backs, the holding midfielder, a 3 midfield line, and then the striker up top. This shape provides really good balance across the lines, from back to front and from side to side. It can be used to teach the roles of the center midfielder and the center back. So, teaching your center back how to read play, how to understand what they're seeing in front of them, how to slide and rotate to the left and the right to cover their 2 outside backs, and what does that mean in relation to the ball. Teaching your center midfielder to find the ball coming out of the back. So now we're really talking about a holding midfielder building the game for our team and quarterbacking an offensive setup. But it's not so big that the center back couldn't do that as well if they have a greater range of pass. Teaching a target player how to work and hold onto the ball and play with their back to goal a little bit more. What kind of runs they need to make when they're doing so. How do they get in behind and present a forward passing lane for the midfield block? And then the midfielders get a lot more work in terms of their movements and their shapes and their patterns. Specifically, again, with the concentrated numbers through the middle of the field, you've got more cover and support, so you can let your 8 take some more risks because you know you have 2 layers of team behind him or her. You know, and then it's a good shape to press high and defend. You have the pressure out of the wingers, you have the striker setting the edge, as we'll talk about a little bit later. And, you know, it's also a great opportunity to teach the interchange on the wing. So we want to talk about attacking overloads. Again, something we'll get into a little bit later today, but we want to talk about attacking overloads. Most of the time that comes in wide spaces by having outside backs and outside midfielders in this shape. It allows for that. It allows for those combinations and those collective actions of the team. And it allows for the striker to not have to be as involved in those wide spaces as much and stay closer to goal where we want them to be. Finally, it can be adapted. So, you know, again, in the ODP structure, most of the states that we play when we deal with 9v9 settings actually revert to a 3-2-3 shape, basically pushing the 7 and the 11 forward, almost as true wingers, and allowing the playing with 2 8s. So you really don't have like a holding midfielder and a box to box. You really have two players who both get in support of the attack, but then also recover back and rely on them to balance each other out. In soccer, there's really 4 moments. There's when we have the ball, which is the attacking moment. There's when the opponent has the ball, which is the defensive moment. And then there's the 2 moments of transition. We have just won it, so it's attacking to a transition to attack, and we have just lost it, transition to defend. So we're going to talk about the learning goals and the principles of each of those 4 moments now, as just to kind of go through the 9v9 system and the curriculum. Okay, so in the 9v9 system, we're looking to attack using overloads. Okay, we're looking to use overloads to build possession. We do that by building out of the back. How do we slide our 6 over to create a 3v2 on one side of the field versus the other to be able to safely advance the ball from the back third of the field into the middle third of the field, or get across midfield? How do we then use that player maybe to change the point of attack, or the pair of midfielders to change the point of attack? Ultimately, it's about the movements of the players to make overloads around the ball, getting numbers around the ball to allow us to secure possession, have options, have choices, and be able to escape pressure. And then also in flank play. So we talked about it a little bit earlier, but how do we use the 2 and the 7 to overload the opponent's outside back to be able to provide service, cut into the box, maybe find a striker or an oncoming midfielder to create scoring chances and scoring opportunities higher up the field. When we're changing the point of attack, we want to be looking to use the midfielders and the center back specifically as options to change this point of attack when we're building play. And then in the attacking half, if we're looking to play off of a target, we can always do that through the 9. And again, using the spine of the team to change the point of attack. With more options there, you have the ability to stagger passing angles and be able to play from one side to the other. Creating space for third man runners. So again, this comes with, do you tuck in your wingers a little bit? Do you create an inverted winger situation so that your outside backs can create more space, get in behind, create that overlap? Do you send your 8 through a gap, or your 6 maybe makes a run or 2 here and there in the game to overload a space because the movements of other players have started to create space for that movement. And then from within that, we're also looking at our positional roles. So the 9 should be learning what that role means. What does it mean to be a number 9? What is your job, your primary jobs? What is your secondary jobs? And then kind of how does that trickle on down into the rest of the team? And finally, managing the opposing counterattacks. So what does our shape look like? And again, this is something that kind of gets overlooked at times in the development stage, but as the earlier we start to introduce it, the better. What does your defensive shape look like when you're attacking high up the field? Do you have your center back and your weak side outside back rotated so that if the ball comes up the line, they can deal with it and kind of recycle possession and get you back into a rhythm offensively? Do you slide your 6 over to cover your outside back if they've gone forward? All of those tactical decisions can start to be introduced as a way of managing the opposing team's ability to counter you and maintain control of the game. And this can all be talked about in the 9v9 format. From a defensive position, what are the roles of our first defender and our second defender? So if we talk about setting and sealing the edge, particularly as we press. So what setting the edge really means is cutting the field in half or making it predictable. It's, that's the common parlance used in coaching. We like to use the phrase set the edge or seal the edge, because for the players that makes it's kind of a really quick cue and makes it possible for them to execute it quickly. Setting the edge pertains to cutting the field in half. Sealing the edge pertains to denying the pathway forward. So basically putting a seal between my shoulder and the touch line so that no ball or player can pass beyond me on that side of me, on the outside. So we set the edge to force the ball to the outside. We seal the edge to force the ball back inside. And again, that's a way of creating pockets of pressure to win the ball. It's creating pockets of pressure to look for interceptions or funnel the ball towards our numbers so we can win the ball in positions to counterattack. What does our compactness look like from back to front? So again, are we keeping good shape from the striker to the center back as the ball moves up and down the field? Same thing with that team compactness from side to side, the width of the team across from left back to right back, left winger to right winger, so that we have good shape as the ball moves side to side. The third defender movement based on those pressure cues. So if the first and second defender are pressuring and covering, setting the edge, and maybe sealing an edge and forcing the ball into a pocket, are the next layer of defenders looking for the pass that they can step into and intercept. Do they recognize that there's a run being made in behind them so they know how to drop off? Again, a lot of that is relevant to pressure on the ball, but those can all be introduced in 9v9, given the size of the field and the greater space that the kids have to work in. And then the positional roles. So again, what is the role of a center back? What are their jobs and responsibilities? What are the roles of a number 9 or a striker in defending? To set the edge, to make the play predictable for the players in the team behind them. And then again, how do we defend to make counterattacks? So I alluded to it before. Are we using a pattern of pressure that's going to allow us to win the ball in midfield, say, where we know we have immediate options forward to try and break lines and get in behind while the other team is disorganized? Do we have the opportunity to play into a midfield position and find the opposite side of the field to change the point of attack? And again, look to play to greater numbers to our strengths. So those are all things we want to think about. Playing, when we attack, we want to think about attack, but be cognizant of how we defend to minimize the opponent's success in transition. And then when we defend, we want to think about how we can attack out of that shape so that we can maximize our advantage in transition. Transition to attack. So again, the definition of the most important pass in soccer in my mind is the first pass out of transition. Secure possession, keep the ball, make sure that we don't give it back to the other team right away. Huge percentage of the time the ball is given back within 2 passes or less. So we want to see if we can minimize that as often as possible. The best pass is the one that eliminates the most defenders. And again, how do you remove opponents from the game to get yourself closer to goal, to create opportunities to score? Working on the expansion of the shape, building the team. So how do we, when we have possession, we might be in a team shape that's about 25 yards wide. When we win possession, now we're looking to expand that shape by creating width from the outside midfielders and maybe explode out to 35 or 40 yards of width, because the players can handle that, a 20-yard pass, 2 20-yard passes gets you across the field kind of a thing. So working on the expansion of width and the expansion of our team shape upon winning possession, and how quickly can we do that? And then again, finding the early option forward. So part of this comes from, can the most important pass be the best pass? So maybe the pass that does secure possession for me is also one that eliminates 2 lines of opposition, and I'm finding the striker's feet and we can play off a target, or maybe I'm playing a midfielder through. Conversely, it could also be that, we're choosing to try and press in specific areas so that when we win the ball, our transitions create those opportunities by virtue of the positions ahead of the ball and win it. So we want the 6 to win the ball in certain areas, or we want the center backs to win the ball in certain areas, because we know once they win the ball, they're going to have layers of the team and passing choices forward where we can start to eliminate members of the opposing team.